Bail denied on a felony escape charge for Danilo Cavalcante. He is now in a maximum security prison after 2 weeks on the run in Pennsylvania. Police closed in on the convicted killer in Chester County, about an hour west of Philadelphia. After they got him into custody, police questioned Cavalcante for 4 hours, where they say he admitted they came close to catching him several times.
He did say on 3 occasions law enforcement officers did almost step on him. He also told us that he survived by eating watermelon the first couple of days. He stated he intended to carjack somebody in the next 24 hours and that he was going to head north to Canada or try to get out of the United States and head back to Puerto Rico.
The manhunt forced school officials to close their buildings and residents to shelter at home during that 2-week span. It is a story that captured the nation's attention for the last 2 weeks. One of the people on the ground covering this story during that time is investigative reporter Ann Shannon from our sister station WGAL-TV in Pennsylvania. Ann, thank you for taking some time to speak with us this afternoon. We want to talk about...
Yeah, happy to.
Absolutely. We want to talk about the arrest first. The dramatic images of police walking Cavalcante out from the state police barracks to a resounding applause. Talk about the sense of relief in the community there.
Yeah, it was a huge sense of relief. A lot of people were extremely concerned, many people not leaving their homes. As you mentioned, schools were shut down. A couple people we spoke to said that they were actually arming themselves because they were concerned about the possibility that he would make his way into their home, which he did on several different occasions. We talked to one guy who he was in his garage and Cavalcante walked into the garage. This man pulled a pistol, shot at Cavalcante, apparently missed, but Cavalcante was able to get away with a .22 rifle. So there was definitely a sense of relief. Although I have to admit, I was really surprised when we got to the state police barracks, the number of people there, the cars, the crowds, and as you said, the roar of applause when he was walked out by Pennsylvania State Police and put into an armored vehicle on his way to a state correctional facility. A little bit overwhelming for a lot of people, I think.
Among the images from Wednesday's capture is a moment where police were seen posing almost in a semicircle for a photo with Cavalcante in their custody. There's been some criticism of that moment. How are the state police commissioner and the governor responding?
Well, that was actually the first question that was asked during a press conference after the announcement of the arrest. And Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens, who headed up this whole 14-day search, said, you know what, actually, he's okay with it. He said that these men and women worked very, very hard, very diligently, sacrificed a lot in order to find Cavalcante and bring him into a custody. And he said he's okay with them maybe celebrating or taking a moment to appreciate the fact that they got their man. So a lot of questions about that, but state police say they're actually okay with that picture, and they're okay with the photo opportunity that was taken by the state police troopers and others.
And during this 2-week search, you got a chance to actually go inside the command center. Give us an idea of what you were able to witness there and learn about the search during this 2-week search for Cavalcante.
You know, I think the most interesting thing to me, the most enlightening thing, they showed us a giant virtual map that could be changed at a moment's notice. And on that map, they had every single asset that was out and part of the search on that map. So you could see the location of every single, you're seeing it right now, you could see the location of every single state police cruiser. You could see where the helicopters were. You could see where some of the other individuals were. We saw the tactical teams and where they were. Now, they didn't let us show on TV everything because they didn't want to give away some of their information, but it was interesting for us to see the number of individuals, the number of different groups that were all working together on this same search. At the height, there were about 500 law enforcement officers all participating in this search, and a lot of very interesting state-of-the-art technology at work as well.
And one more quick question, talking about the escape with Cavalcante. Apparently, he took the same route a different inmate escaped. We know one person lost their job behind this escape. What, if any, changes are being made at that facility and other facilities in Pennsylvania?
Well, interestingly enough, the warden who had just come on the job the day before said that they had added that extra razor wire, but now they are also adding an additional guard in that area. They're actually going to enclose the entire area where the inmates are able to go outside. They're going to enclose that, make it a little bit safer. But they also say they're going to take a big look at all of the safety and security procedures. One of the other interesting notes to this, there is an employment issue at many of the county prisons across Pennsylvania. that will get a closer look, as well as they are trying to get more prison guards to come on board to help maintain security at all of these prisons.
All right, some very important perspective. Investigative reporter Ann Shannon from our sister station, WGAL in Pennsylvania. Thanks again for your time here this afternoon.